Hello and welcome to this edition of Northwest Profiles. I'm your host, Lynn Veltri, and as usual, I'm here to say welcome to a new show and to a brand new year, which has arrived with a great deal of anticipation, new resolutions, and unfortunately, the icy chill of old man winter. Now, of course, for us here at KSPS PBS, there's no better way to cope with the gloom and frosty temps of January than with a heavy dose of upbeat, heartwarming stories. It's what Northwest Profiles has been delivering for well over 3 decades, and our new show is no exception. Let's give it a go, shall we? For our first story, we're going to toss things up a bit with a look inside the game of cornhole, a sport that is rapidly gaining popularity here in the U.S. and around the world. But the question is, what is it, and what makes it so popular? Well, you're about to find out from a talented 17-year-old player known as the Cornhole Cowboy.
It's called cornhole, and it's one of the fastest growing games or sports in America and around the world. Players take turns throwing fabric beanbags at a raised, angled board with a hole in it. The goal is to score points by either landing a bag on the board, 1 point, or putting a bag to the hole, 3 points. The game is believed to have originated in Germany in the 14th century and then rediscovered in Cincinnati in the 1980s. The truth is, no one really knows, but the game is great fun for all ages and can be played most anywhere. Many organizations have sprung up to promote cornhole. The American Cornhole Association's sole mission is to help cornhole players enjoy the game. The American Cornhole Organization offers official cornhole rules. The American Cornhole League promotes and develops cornhole as a sport. And now there is the World Cornhole Organization, which is the international federation for the global sport of cornhole and has many member countries.
Here in Paris, France for the 2023 ACL Europe Open.
Here in Spokane, we too have cornhole leagues.
There are 5 clubs within the area that do a lot of smaller events and bigger events, but league-wise, I think that's it at the moment.
Ron and his wife moved to Spokane a year and a half ago, and soon after, purchased the Spokane Cornhole League from a couple who were retiring.
The club was just such a great place for me to meet people. When we moved here, we didn't know a single person in the state, and it was such a welcoming, loving place to go have fun.
Like many people who play cornhole, Ron discovered the game during the pandemic.
I saw it on TV, ordered boards, started playing at home. Next thing you know, have a few friends over, we're playing, and then I figured out, like a month into it, I hadn't lost a single game of cornhole, which makes it more fun. I think it's that simplicity and how easily and quickly you can achieve success. Success has so many levels. Just watching a new player that can barely hit the board, all of a sudden they get 1 bag in the hole, it looks like they won the sweepstakes. It's amazing. Just feeling that energy is part of what we love about the game.
17-year-old Connor Thornberry, known as the Cornhole Cowboy, knows all about cornhole success.
I can say I've taken money from it. Like I do have profits, but it's not as much as you would really think with all the expenses, travel and.
Connor too started playing cornhole during the pandemic to pass the time and discovered that he had a knack for it.
I really wasn't that bad to start, but I really wasn't that good either. But in the scheme of things, I really picked it up really fast. I was able to kind of start beating people faster than most people can.
One of his biggest attributes is throwing a particular kind of bag that is extremely hard to do. And that is being able to get the bag to land in front of other people's bags that may be blocking the hole and then just gently roll over their bag. Most normal players don't have access to that shot, but it's one of the things that makes him stand out.
Connor had decided that he needed to brand himself with a memorable name, and since he works on a ranch in Spangle, Washington, Connor the Cornhole Cowboy was the perfect fit. He has now played in close to 200 tournaments.
Last year I went to like 23 or 24 states just in the 1 year, as far as South Carolina, which was pretty crazy. It's actually pretty big professionally. There's 256 pros per year, and when you go pro, that opens up more tournaments. The pro shootouts are where the money's at, and the nationals are where the money's at, but if you can win a pro shootout, that gives you a chance at like $100,000. So I've got a lot I want to do with my life, and one of those things is become a pro, even if it's only for a year. I'd be happy moving on with my life. I tried the last couple years and I got really close. I just didn't quite get it.
Who wants to see a world record?
Connor may not be a cornhole pro, but he quite possibly is a cornhole world record holder. In September 2023 at the Spokane Interstate Fair, Connor broke the previous world record toss of 77 feet 11 inches. His toss of 85 feet, waiting to be certified by the Guinness World Record Organization, beats the old toss by more than 7 feet.
I think it's going to be pretty hard to beat that.
Now, I have to admit, that looks like fun. And if you agree and would like to try your hand at the game, take note. Spokane Cornhole gathers at Players and Spectators in the Spokane Valley every Tuesday night. Up next, we continue with the Western theme with a trip to the frontier. In this case, a scenic ranch in western Montana. There, the sights, sounds, and smells of the Western lifestyle are captured within the workshop of a man who fashions detailed, handcrafted leatherworks meant for both work and play.
On a ranch in western Montana, it's not a stretch to see someone that has a close relationship to horses.
And most horses will hold air if they got any brains at all, so you don't try to snug them all the way up at first.
On this particular ranch, its owner, Jeff Morrow, has built a life and business that are unsurprisingly directly related to one another.
I'm a custom saddle maker, and I also like to make chaps and gun leather and personal items like belts and tote bags and whatever people like. I really like what I do because the material is so cool. I just love finding good leather.
As owner and operator of Shooting Star Saddlery in Nirada, Montana, you could say leatherwork fits right into Morrow's lifestyle and the Shooting Star into his business brand name.
I grew up in North Carolina, and I was trying to get horses out of my system. So I came west, but it just got worse. I was about 19 then. We were living on the Blackfeet Reservation. There's quite a bit of these stars called shooting stars. And when you see them, you know winter's kind of over with and summer's is going to be right around the corner. Preferably I'll make a saddle that'll fit a range of horses, but in the custom saddle business, often you'll get people that have a horse with a real odd back, and that's where we come in to get a tree to fit that horse. My typical customer is somebody who wants to upgrade. They're tired of their crummy factory-built saddle. For whatever reason, it doesn't fit their horse or doesn't work for them. But all saddles can be pretty. It's all about the lines, whether they're decorated or not. If they have good lines, that's pretty on a plain one or a tooled one. For saddle leather, it's veg tanned, which means it'll take an impression, it'll shape really well, and it'll hold up really well. And the best veg, I use two American tanneries, Herman Oak out of St. Louis. They're awesome. They've been around since 1880 or something like that. And I also use Wickett and Craig. They're out of Pennsylvania, and they've been in the business too, again, over 100 years. And Herman I like a little better for the tooling, and the Wickett and Craig I like a little better for shaping. And saddle makers have this argument all day: who's better, Wickett and Craig or Herman Oak? And everybody has their favorite. But I like them both for different reasons. But yeah, there's a lot of clinicians going around teaching people horsemanship, and those guys usually have a nice saddle, and I think people see that and buy them. I think to some degree, a lot of cowboys and riders and people like that, they're sort of equipment geeks because their equipment heightens their experience quite a bit. comfort-wise and comfort for the horse too. And shaps are great when you got a horse with square wheels. It takes the lumps out a little bit. I think the factory saddles have not upped their game, but they've upped their price so that their quality's still not that great, but their price is getting closer to customs, where a custom looks more affordable or more reasonable.
From the tree that forms the base of the saddle to the 3 to 4 layers of leather over a piece of tin to give rigidity to the seat, the many facets of the leather Western saddle fit right into Jeff Morrow's intent to provide quality, custom leather gear for both the weekend rider to the daily ranch hand.
This is a modern tree made by Ben Swanky. It's birch, poplar, covered in rawhide. This is a wood post horn before it has the leather on it, and it's integral with the fork. This is the fork. This is the cantle. Real nice tight stitch work by K.T. Munson, his rawhide guy. This will be a tree for a little girl named Dally. I like this job because I'm making people happy and comfortable. And I hope I'm making horses comfortable too. My hands are getting kind of claw-ish, crippled and sore, but I still like doing it, and I think I'll just do it till I can't do it anymore.
On the way next, we leave the countryside and head back to the city, where we take a dive into a world of watercolor. Our talented guide is local artist Megan Perkins, who shares her love of painting and her secret to getting started in the arts.
More things than you would think are beautiful simply by lavishing that attention via paint and drawing. That elevates it, and then other people can see that too. They can see what I see. Hi, I'm Megan Perkins. I am a watercolor artist, and I paint local Spokane scenes, landscapes and landmarks. I've kept sketchbooks forever, since I was very small. Use that to sort of record the world around me. We traveled quite a bit when I was a kid. We went to Italy when I was in high school, and so I knew that when I went to Gonzaga, I wanted to go to the Gonzaga in Florence program. I spent a year in Florence, Italy, and went to 23 different countries. So this is Japan. This one has some really cool, like, stickers and things in it. When you're out there painting and drawing, it takes anywhere from 20 minutes on the low end to maybe 2 hours on the long end to complete a drawing. And people notice you. Because I'm painting on location, I've gotten to have conversations with people all over the world. I've had strangers go well out of their way to help me when we didn't even speak the same language. Traveling and then painting abroad is just a really strong reminder of all of our common humanity and our love for a place, whether we traveled from far away or whether that place is home. This is garden flowers, demo from painting in Garland for the art school. This is Manitou. I did a class where we painted in this garden this past summer, and I did a demo right like around here. And as I was painting, we got into it, and then the sprinkler system, I hear the sprinkler system, the pop, 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 and we all get up and like, flee, run. I've been teaching art for, at this point, about a decade. And I teach at the Corbin Art Center, the Spokane Art School, and the Northwest Museum of Art and Culture. I teach watercolor classes, and then classes on keeping sketchbooks and on daily drawing or drawing habits, sketching, that kind of stuff. I have a class coming up where it's titled Painting a Cozy Corner, where the idea is look around your house, find maybe there's a spot you love, your spot on the couch, your kitchen, your porch, your favorite place, and then we're going to spend time sort of really enjoying that place by drawing it and painting it, and you're gonna memorialize it in a way. The point that I want to get across to people is that many people, particularly beginning students, have a really high expectations of themselves about, they They have to make a magnificent masterpiece, glorious painting, something of Italy, something of a cathedral. Frequently when you're starting out, the idea of trying to paint the outside of a cathedral that's a big subject, that's pretty hard. Why not focus on something that's a little closer to home, that's a little simpler, and you have a personal connection to? My goal for all my students is just to encourage them to make as much art as possible and to enjoy the process and to have a connection to it that helps sort of propel them to keep making work, because that's the way you get better, little bites at a time. Well, I think when we don't have art in our local community, we lose a certain level of joy. Art makes the city beautiful. You'd have boring, flat utility boxes without anything cool on it. There would be no garbage goat, which I think would be a travesty. Art brings people together. It's a way to celebrate, marks important parts of our lives. It creates a special sense of place, a uniqueness, a distinctness. The reason why we like to travel to other places is because it is different. So the way that we make art in response to our environment here in Spokane is part of what makes Spokane amazing. It is an expression of our beautiful landscape and our people and our history and our culture, which is why it would be interesting for someone from Italy or Florence or Ireland or whatever to come visit us. They wouldn't want to do that, really, if we were the same as Ireland and vice versa. It's creating a sense of place that is unique from anywhere else. So without that, we all become sort of a homogenized blob that's not very interesting. Art is an expression of self, and that can be across individuals or as a full city.
To see more of Megan's dazzling artwork, just dip into her website at meganperkinsart.com. Now for our last story, let's enter the time machine for a trip back to the early 1900s, where we expose the story behind the extraordinary photographer Frank Matsura. As a Japanese immigrant, Matsura arrived in the Okanogan Valley in 1903. He soon started taking photographs of his new neighbors. Eventually, Matsura's personality, along with his talented eye, won the hearts and respect of the diverse, rough-and-tumble frontier community around him.
In the Okanogan Valley, photographer Frank Matsura, a Japanese immigrant, was befriended by a community of cowboys, miners, merchants, and Native Americans. In a time when portraits were stiff, formal affairs, Matsura's photographs seemed to capture a more authentic image of his friends and neighbors. Matsura would have fit right into our culture today of Instagrams and selfies. He took photographs like a family member would, with a real personal connection, many times including himself. Frank Matsura was well liked in the Okanogan Valley. He was gregarious, full of fun, and seemed to get along with everyone from all walks of life. His camera knew no social barriers. Cowboys, farmers, miners, Native Americans, women, rich or poor, they all came under his spell. Frank Sakai Matsura was born in Tokyo, Japan in 1873 to a samurai family that could trace their ancestry back to the 1600s. At age 28, looking for adventure, Frank Matsura packed up his camera, grabbed his passport, and sailed for America. In the fall of 1903, Frank Matsura arrived in Conconully, Washington, in Okanogan County. He was hired by Jess Dillabow to work at the Elliott Hotel as a laundryman and general roustabout.
You know, they need a cook, a washer, a roustabout, somebody just help out with the chores. He answered the call.
At that time, Okanogan County was considered one of the last frontiers in the American West.
People were still packing 6 guns, but at the same time, you had the automobile, the incandescent light.
The Delabaws kind of adopted him and treated him like kind of a big brother to their young family, and there's a lot of pictures of the Delabaw kids with Frank.
Matsura soon began taking photographs in his spare time and developing them in the laundry room of the hotel. Early on, his name starts appearing in the Okanogan Record newspaper. At first, Matsura was referred to as the Little Jap. Before long, he becomes Mr. Frank Matsura, the esteemed photographer who is taking wonderful photographs of our community.
The bleeding edge of manifest destiny out here. The 1880s saw anti-Chinese riots in Seattle. There was a lot of animosity, xenophobia, the fear of the immigrants taking a job that rightfully belonged to a white man.
But Frank and his camera seemed to break down social barriers.
His gregariousness and his ability to be at all levels of social strata.
He was much more engaged at a direct level with the people of the community that he was working with, that he would see on a regular basis, that he was friends with. That distinction right there tells me about Frank Matsura, that he lived in the communities. He was a part of the community. And so with that, his engagement with the people that he was photographing, it was much more personal. There wasn't this removal.
Frank Matsura also had a special connection with the Native Americans.
Here was a person who looked a lot like them in skin color and eyes, and did not condescend to them. In fact, offered them the Japanese humility and hospitality, and took note of their material culture and their families, and visited their families at their houses.
But by no means, I think, was he trying to document the Native people in a way that was trying to capture them before they disappeared. This by no means was the intention of Frank Matsura. You could see that. He allowed the people to be who they were in that time, whether it was proudly wearing their traditional regalia or the clothes that they wore out on the ranch with their big Angora chaps and hats and cuffs. He was very conscious of who they were in that moment in time.
Sudden death in Okanogan, the OMAC Chronicle reported. Sadly, on June 19th, 1913, Frank Matsura's life was cut short by tuberculosis. Frank Matsura was only 39 years old. A shadow of sorrow was cast over the community early in the week by the sudden death Monday night of Frank S. Matsura, the Japanese photographer who has been part and parcel of the city ever since its establishment 7 years ago, the Okanogan Independent. Frank's place in Okanogan City will never be filled. He was held in high esteem of all who knew him, and was known from one end of this vast county to the other.
After Frank Matsura's death in 1913, many of his glass plate negatives were misplaced and almost lost to history. Thanks to the efforts of the Okanogan Historical Society and Washington State University, his work has been recovered, restored, and put into an exhibition now running at Spokane's Northwest Museum of Arts and Culture. Portraits from the Borderland features a variety of Matsura's historical images, and I encourage you to see them in person. And with that, it's time to put a lens cap on this edition of Northwest Profiles, with a guarantee of more great stories to come. This is Lynn Valtry saying so long, and remember, the beauty of living here in the inland Northwest in Western Canada is the fact that there is always much to see and experience. You just have to be looking for it. So get out there, and when you do, be sure you take time to enjoy the view.